In this lesson, we will be going over 7 basic chord shapes. Not that these are the only chords you should learn, but with these 7 chords there are literally hundreds of songs that you can learn to play. The chords that we will be covering are E minor, E major, A minor, A major, D major, C major, and G major. Note that it is very important to learn correct finger placement. Good form can mean the difference between a chord sounding clear and crisp or sounding dull and muted. Remember that form relies less on strength than it does coordination. To prove my point, press down on one string at any fret. Notice that it does not take a lot of force to hold the string down. The problem is that when we place multiple fingers to form a chord, we usually end up placing pressure in areas that don't need it. In turn, we press harder to compensate. The point is to find the least amount of pressure it takes to make the note ring clear. Any more pressure than that is simply wasting energy. So if you find yourself holding excessively hard, it might be best to start again with a calmer approach where you are focusing pressure at the specific points needed. To ensure good form, make sure to use the tips of your fingers. Be as close to the fret as possible without being on top of it. And finally, your fingers should curve slightly at each joint, ensuring you don't touch any other strings. Straightening your fingers will put you in danger of touching other strings, in turn muting them out. Now let's take a look at our first chord, E minor. E minor is formed by placing your second finger at the second fret of the 5th string and your third finger on the second fret of the 4th string directly underneath your second finger. Its root note is at the 6th string and all strings are included in the chord. E major is the same as E minor, except that we now include our first finger at the 1st fret of the 3rd string. Like E minor, the root note is the 6th string, and all strings are included in the chord. Taking a look at A minor, we notice it's the exact same shape as E major. But the shape has now moved one string lower, so our first finger is now on the 2nd string, our second finger is now on the 4th string, and our third finger is now on the 3rd string. Our root note has also changed. It is now the 5th string with the 6th string being excluded. There will always be different ways to form chords. Multiple shapes for the same chord is not uncommon, and A major is no exception. Here are 2 common ways A major is formed. The more common of the 2 is formed by placing our first finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, our second finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and our third finger on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string. Notice how it forms a slightly diagonal line. Another way to play A major is to switch the positions of our first and second fingers. Bring your first finger down to the 3rd string and your second finger up to the 4th string. We feel this is a better way to play A major, due to being able to get 2 of your fingers right up against the fret. The other form only allows 1 of your fingers to be right up against the fret. In any case, both forms are acceptable. A major's root note is the 5th string with the 6th string being excluded. D major is formed by placing our first finger on the 3rd string at the 2nd fret, our second finger on the 1st string at the 2nd fret, and our third finger on the 2nd string at the 3rd fret. Notice that the form looks like a triangle pointing up the neck. D major's root is the fourth string, and we exclude both the sixth and fifth strings. C major is formed by placing our first finger on the second string at the first fret, our second finger on the fourth string at the second fret, and our third finger on the fifth string at the third fret. Remember to stay relaxed and keep minimal tension throughout your hand and body. It will allow you to make the stretch that C major requires. C major's root note is on the fifth string, and we exclude the sixth string. G major is another chord with multiple forms. Here we will go over two of them. The easier of the two for most people is formed by placing our first finger on the fifth string at the second fret, our second finger on the sixth string at the third fret, and our third finger on the first string at the third fret. G major can also be played by placing our second finger on the fifth string at the second fret, our third finger on the sixth string at the third fret, and our fourth finger on the first string at the third fret. Although generally more difficult, this form makes more sense when moving to or from some chords. G major's root note is the sixth string, and all strings are included in the chord.